I have to say that in a very competitive environment, extreme ownership can be used by your enemies or the people that want your position. When you take ownership over all faults of your team members, you guys become better and get a healthier attitude. But that takes time. So until your team improves and start to get better results, your opponents will take those 10s of "it was my fault" and present them to your boss as proof that, yeah, this guy is not good, or at least not confident enough and looks weak. Is not my case. For me, it worked great, but I've seen it happening to few colleagues who just didn't have good team members, and they took their extreme ownership for weakness and just took advantage of that.
Okay, so what we've got here is what he's saying is extreme ownership. If you're taking extreme ownership of things, your enemies can actually take advantage of that. And in this guy's case,
right, like in the earlier stages of it.
Yeah, and he said, well, actually, he says that for him it's worked great.
Yeah.
But that he's seen some of his compadres who have started to take ownership, and they've got weak team, and the team, what does he say here? What's the words he uses? They didn't have good team members, and they took their extreme ownership for weakness and took advantage of it. Okay, So first of all, out of the gate, if you have weak or bad team members, that is the first thing the leader needs to take ownership of, right? If you have truly weak and bad team members, then you need to either train them or coach them or get rid of them. That's the first thing. So if you've got backstabbing bad team members that are looking to claw you down as the leader, you got a problem with those people. And you need to fix that problem, number one. So let's just start with that. Number two, and there's two kind of parts of this. There's an insecurity, a level of insecurity, and there's a level of, or a matter of perception. The insecurity is the thing that says, if I say this is my fault, then everyone up and down the chain of command is going to say, fire him. Fire him. It's his fault. But I want you to think about how that's actually perceived. If what you do is, let's take the other example, is what you do is you blame everyone else. If that's your attitude, if your attitude is, it wasn't my fault, it was his fault, it was her fault, it was their fault, it was not me, I'm just the person in charge, it's not me. Think about that statement. It's not my fault. It's my team's fault. I'm just the person in charge. It's not my fault. Think about that.
Yeah.
Whenever you're placing blame, if you're a leader and you're placing blame on your team, what you're saying is, hey, it's not my fault. It's my team's fault. I'm just the leader here. I'm not the one out there in the field doing the work. I'm not the one that's making those decisions. I'm not the one that's interacting with customers. I'm not the one that's doing that. So this isn't my fault. It's my team's fault. Well, meanwhile, guess who's in charge of the team? You are. So the minute that you start saying it wasn't my fault and his fault, everyone else's fault, if you think about how you look to your boss, it's laughable. You look like an idiot. You don't look like a good leader. So don't fall for it. And you know what? I'm actually not saying that you'll never get fired if you take ownership. Because you know what? If you do something that's really bad, there's absolutely a chance you could get fired. If you do something that cost a bunch of money or was immoral or illegal, or you covered something up or your team covered something up, or you did something that was truly wrong and you take ownership of it, yeah, you might still get fired. You know what? That happens in the Navy. In the Navy, if your ship runs aground, or like lately there's been some collisions on these ships, and I think Leif and I might talk about those at some point on the podcast, but the captain of the ship is done. It doesn't matter if he was on the ship or not. He could be, because a ship's at sea, the captain might have had to flown to another ship to talk to the admiral. If his ship crashes, he's done. It doesn't matter if he's there or not. He's responsible for the training. He's responsible for the actions. He's responsible for everything that's happening on that ship. And he's getting fired. And and also, if he did do something wrong, well, yeah, he takes ownership of it. Doesn't matter. He's getting fired. So I'm not saying you're never going to get fired. But generally, and this is, when I say generally, this is the vast majority of the time. This is 99% of the time. If you take ownership, you don't look like a weak boss. You look like a strong boss that is taking ownership of the problems and is going to get the problem solved. I say this over and over again. And as always, you don't just have to own the problems. You have to own the solutions to the problems too. So this is the situation here. You got this guy. People, if you're in charge of a bad team and you're taking ownership, the bad team is what you have to fix. You have to fix it. You have to train them. You have to coach them. You have to mentor them. You have to do all those things. And if you can't get them to get on board with the program, then you got to get rid of them. Or get rid of that one or two bad people that are causing the infraction and causing that cancer to spread. Get rid of them. Set the example. Promote somebody that's hungry and young and wants to get after it. So you got to take ownership of the team, the problems, the weak people on the team. You got to take ownership of the solutions and get them solved.
It seems like, and I kind of noticed this from the beginning.
Go.
Is that when you take...
I was going to cut you off with... I've talked about this before. Sometimes people say, they think if they say, I'll take ownership of this, then the problems, then it's like they're safe.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not the case.
Yeah.
Just because you say, hey, this is
my fault.
Hey, it's my fault. I'm taking ownership of this.
Done.
That doesn't mean the problem is solved. There's a problem.
Yeah.
You have to say, yes, there's a problem here. I'm taking ownership of it. It's my fault because I'm in charge and this is what we're going to do to fix it. And then you have to actually go and fix it.
There's the part right there. Yeah. That scene.
Because if you come to me 12 times and you say, hey, Jocko, we didn't get the podcast out because I forgot to hit record.
Hey, that's my bust.
That's my bust. Oh, okay. Well, hey, from now on, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that we have these things in place and I hooked up a light and it's going to, if the thing isn't recording, the studio is going to go dark.
I don't know if you remember this because this might be just the way you are, but when we went to...
I remember it. No, I'm just kidding.
Where did we go? We went, like last trip we went on driving. We went to, Charlie Plum.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Charlie Plum. Yeah. And we were looking for, I can't remember what we were looking for, either the hotel or the place or wherever.
A steakhouse.
Might have been.
That was a good
So we were going, and I was kind of navigating, and you were kind of navigating, kind of trying to help. Not trying to help, but you were kind of navigating, but kind of not. Mm-hmm. It really seemed like, to me anyway, you were like, okay, I'll let you kind of navigate. And we took a wrong turn. Whatever. We were off track or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I got to take extreme ownership right now. Because like right now is like the perfect time to take extreme ownership. Like, or should I say the worst time not to take extreme ownership, right? So I'm like, oh no, that's my bad. Like I'm going to, I'm going to do this kind of thing. But at the same time, you like really aggressively took ownership. Like you're almost to the point where at first I was like, are you joking? But you weren't joking. You were serious. Joking. You were like, take the next turn right here. And then we'd come close to it. You'd be like, this turn right here. This turn right like you, at all costs, you were not letting me, make a mistake again. But which is funny though, but it is a good example because not only, I mean, in your mind, you put forward the more important part. You were like, okay, I'm going to take, it's like your actions said that it's your fault. But the solutions that you had, even though they're real extreme or whatever, like that was the part that you were implementing. I wasn't
a jerk about it though, was it? No, just like, hey, all right, you know what, here's the deal. Next turn is going to be 0.5 miles. Here it's coming up on the right. Yeah. All right, right-hand turn right here.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that's how we navigate in the day.
Oh, for real? Yeah. It's actually good. I mean,
it's really squared away.
Yeah.
When you're in a convoy of military vehicles, it's awesome.
And you know what's bad, really on my part, is that at first I thought you were joking, like patronizing me,
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
But that's really kind of my ego, kind of as if this is say like, you said the next turn, this is the next turn, I can figure that out, I'm smart enough to figure that out kind of thing. But if I'm like, okay, this is the system, and Jocko's gonna, tell me, and he's gonna be detailed about it and make absolutely sure we don't miss the turn, kind of thing, then you're right. Dang, that's a good way to navigate, Mm-hmm. But two people got to be on board. But nonetheless, like, dang, you had the solution, So it goes back to it. Like, it seems like back to this question, your enemies could take advantage early on, right? As the extreme ownership culture is trying to take hold, kind of. That's what I kind of get from it. Like
even early on.
that's what I think too.
Even early
if you're like,
on,
okay, this is my fault. Here's what we're doing.
Even early on, you don't look like an idiot. You actually look squared away because you go, here are the problems that we're having that I've identified. Here's what we're going to do to fix them.
Yeah.
No one knows where we're driving right now. You're kind of half driving and half paying attention. I'm over here talking or doing whatever. Guess what? We made a mistake. It's not going to happen again. I got this. Hey, right turn coming up 500 meters. Yeah. Right turn. Get in the left-hand lane. Prepare to go. You know what I mean? That's that's how we solved the problem.
Yep.
And to think in the beginning, you get there and you say, hey, here's the problem. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Yeah. It's not, hey, everything's my fault. That's not extreme. Extreme ownership isn't, hey, everything's my fault. Everything's my fault. And now can you just leave me alone? No.
Especially not in that
You actually have to take ownership of the problems.
Man,
I said that over and over again. Yeah. But hey, you know what? Just like jiu-jitsu, you got to see a move a bunch of different times, a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
Bunch of different ways before you start to truly understand it.
Yeah. I think that's with everything.
Do you ever hear yourself make an excuse?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Bro,
you're done.
I know, you know how you say you can feel it kind of coming out.
Yeah,
you can see those excuses coming a mile away. Yeah. And here's the thing: you have them in your head. Yeah. Excuses, complaining about how you feel. When there's something to be done. I'm not saying, in every single case, but when there's something to be done, be like, I'm tired of doing this, or I don't know, whatever. That was just a random example, but man, I can see that stuff coming a mile away.
Yeah. Now. It's definitely something that you get used to and you get good at.
Yeah.
Right? You get good at. Yeah. You get good at saying, you get good at not saying, well, one of my assistant platoon commanders, who's an awesome guy, and he had this thing, if he was going to disagree with me, he would say the word well, meaning, well, let's think about it. But he had a funny way of saying it.
Yeah.
He would say, well, like that. And so I'd say, hey, how are you going to do this? And he'd, come up with his plan, and I'd say, hey, what about this on the plan? You might want to come in from the north instead of from the west. And he'd go, well. And then I'd say, after a while, that became a code word for you're about to get choked.
Yeah.
Whoa. But he's an awesome guy. Check. Whoa. Don't tell me your excuses.
Next question.